Christine, I would like you to introduce yourself and where you live and what you do.
Right. Well, my name's Christine Tebbitt, and I live in West Sussex, Middleton-on-Sea, and I love most things to do with textiles. I even do a bit of bookmaking, and primarily I'm an embroiderer. I like free machine embroidery, hand embroidery, um, and it was because of that that I came up with the idea of making a fabric paper book to house my embroideries in. And so I researched to find a strong method of doing this and went to several books and then came up with how I created the actual Bayeux tapestry book. And I've also got little ones with little pages with little embroideries in. I made a little study of faces and cartoon faces, and that's the fabric paper used for that as well. So it's a really lovely way of, you know, creating something with your work and housing it nicely. I've got little zigzag books that I've used with the Bayeux tapestry, little motifs, and again, that's all fabric paper and done in like a concertina book. So yeah, that's me and how I got started with fabric paper.
Could you explain to me a little bit about a Bayeux tapestry?
Right. The Bayeux tapestry was created about 1,000 years ago when the Normans conquered Britain, and it's a history of before William the Conqueror and Edward the Confessor, and how they met, and how it came to be that Edward named William, a Duke of Normandy, to be the heir to the English throne because Edward didn't have any children. But of course, Britain had something to say about it. They wanted Britain to be the king and the old families, but William had it in his mind that he wanted to be King of England. So that's what happened. And it's the story of the beginning of how Edward and William meet, and then when Edward dies, and then William gathers his forces. He even invites Harold over, who is the leading member of the Saxons in Britain, and I think William held him captive or something until he agreed to swear fidelity to him. And then, of course, when he was released, went back to England because Harold gathered all his troops and everything and reneged on the deal. But William was a stronger force than them, and Harold got killed in the battle.
So, okay, but that's a good history of William the Conqueror. But how is your
it was his
tapestry?
wife. Yeah, it's his wife. Kind of documented the all the different activities that went on, and they created. It's called a tapestry, but it actually isn't a tapestry. It's an embroidery. It's a plique work using different fabrics on like a canvas fabric with certain types of stitches. And one of the stitches is called a Bayeux stitch because, and it was, they started in Bayeux in France, in northern France. And it said that the Bayeux tapestry started after William conquered England, and they wanted to record the history of it, and they did it in pictures. So, and I do believe that William's wife had something to do with it, Matilda. And as far as I know, I think they've sourced the fact that it was actually created in the south of England, but Bayeux in France have the actual embroidery and have it displayed in their museums out there.
So did that influence you? Is that what you're saying when you mention it? Or did you do a
Um,
tapestry? What happened?
well, it's so naive, and I'm not a great artist. I don't draw particularly well, and the figures in the Bayeux tapestry are so simple, childlike, and I thought that they would translate to free machine embroidery. So I got myself a book, great big book, and it's got photographs of the panels in the book. So I traced them off and studied the colors and then transferred those images onto calico, onto a heavy calico, and then just started to get them down with black thread and then color them in. And this is what you see today. This is, I've got the book here. If I get it here, and lift it up.
Ah, yes, thank you.
These are the actual pictures, the embroideries, and the background is the fabric paper. And what I've done is I've drawn it on with my needle on the sewing machine and then coloured it in using the same type of colours that the photographs. I mean, I'd actually never seen the Bayeux tapestry, and it wasn't until after I completed this that I persuaded my husband that that's where we ought to go on holiday. And we took a ferry across to France, northern France, and we actually stayed in Bayeux. And we went to the museum and saw the embroidery there.
Well, is there any way to go to an overhead camera and see the Bayeux tapestry?
Um, Let me, I could try and, I mean, they're all individual embroideries.
See, one of the things I love about your work is the size. I think it's very difficult to pick a size that's just right. And it seems to me
Yeah,
that the
yeah,
size that you pick is just right. Go ahead
yes.
and do whatever you want to. We'll
Let me
be fine.
move the computer. And is it kind of showing you?
No, it started to and then it disappeared.
No,
It's
it's not
starting
doing
to
it, is
show the
it?
top.
Yeah. Um, Let me stand up. There we go.
That's the
So
page
that,
that, can we start at the
yeah, that
beginning?
literally all, yeah, there. This is the book. This is a big book, and it actually shows you the tapestry. And this is what I used, and it's all panels of the different stories behind the invasion of Britain by the Normans. And at the top and at the bottom, there's little motifs. And I've used those motifs in lots of different things like this. And they're so, they're just, so easy. Well, easy. They're just so lovely to do, and so interesting to do. And this is how, I mean, it literally goes round a room backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. I can't remember how long it is, but it literally, this book is the whole of the tapestry, and it shows you them page by page as it goes round. The
Is
camera
that where
goes
you were
round.
on holiday now, or did you go somewhere else? Or did you go to see this tapestry?
Sorry.
You said you were on holiday. Did you go now to see this tapestry,
Yeah, I
or?
did. It was 10 years book. I did these embroideries about 12 years ago, 11, 12 years ago. And after I'd completed it, I thought, oh, I actually want to see the actual tapestry, or embroidery as it should be called. So we took a trip to France, northern France, and it's there in their museum, and it's just fantastic. It just goes round, the room. It's so long. It used to be in the Bayeux church, and it literally went up and down the church. It's so long.
So when did you do this trip?
I did this trip literally 10 years ago.
Okay, okay. So it's been a while since you visited and did
Yeah,
tapestry yourself.
yeah.
Before you visited, I really wish we could see it from beginning to end, your tapestry, but
Well, mine is only just snapshots. That's what I've
that's
called it.
fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
I still would love to see it, but is there, I know other you have to hold it up, but is there any
There
way?
is, yeah. Well, on YouTube, I go through it. I've got a video on YouTube, and
Okay,
it's called the Bear Tapestry, free machine embroidery, and I literally go through it page by page. And
okay.
it's also on my website. You can see it on my website as well. So
I will put the links to that on the bottom
yeah,
of your our video, and so people can see your work, see the work
yeah.
of your tapestry.
Yeah, because I go through it and explain exactly how I was able to create it. Because I mean, I've just literally copied it. It's nothing clever. I've transferred the image onto stitch and tear, put it onto calico fabric with my needle. I've drawn round with black thread so that I've got an image. When I turn it over, I've got an image that goes in the hoop, and free machine embroidery, the colours, putting the colours in, all the writing in, all the background in. And in the video, in the YouTube video, I'm showing you exactly how I do that.
I'm going to see it. I haven't seen it on your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
It seems like you haven't done a YouTube thing for a while. Am I
No, I
right?
haven't. I've got nothing new really to. I mean, I do lots of work, do lots of embroidery work, but most people, my subscribers, seem to like all the paper stuff that I do, and I don't do a lot of paper stuff. So the only other paper stuff I do is like altered books, and
Altered
again,
book.
this is fabric paper that I've used to cover it. I've cut out butterflies, images, and I do muck around with an old book. So, and I did think that I might do a YouTube video on that, on how I create that. But
Were you teaching also, or have you been teaching on your website? I felt like there was some kind of thing
yeah,
about starting classes or
yeah, I used to run, once upon a time, I used to run classes. Um, we've moved house the last few years. We've been here about 3 years. And before that, I had a large enough house that I could open it up and I could run classes from home. And I had a studio and a workshop at home. But this house, we've downsized. Our boys have left home, and it's a smaller house, smaller garden, and so I don't teach anymore. So although I do the odd workshop for the textile groups that I belong to, um, on different things.
that's something else I was going to ask you. You know, I have a lot of textile books and I had bought them on Amazon
Yeah,
and I found it really interesting. After a while, I thought this doesn't make any sense to me what they've done.
yeah,
And then I realized that all the books that I have are from people in the UK.
right.
And I don't, how did this happen? Like they're completely different textiles than the American.
Oh,
The
really?
Americans do quilts, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
uh, in craft or quilts or but the people in the UK, the women in the UK or the people do textile. They actually use textiles
yeah,
to create like you with the bear tapestry,
yeah,
fabric paper, I mean, people do things.
Yeah.
Uh, was there a movement? What brought this on in the UK?
I mean, women for over 1,000 years have been doing embroidery. Their mothers teach them embroidery. They knit, they crochet, they sew, um, and a lot of it is hand embroidery. Not so much patchwork, although we do have a big patchwork movement now here, and lots of the ladies that are in my textile groups have all started with um, patchwork, but then they want more. They want to do more. They want to create something more than just a quilt, um, a cover. So people have come up with all sorts of different ideas. I mean, I do 3D textiles. This is a little one, if I can show it to you.
Oh, I see that. That's lovely.
Now that is sheer fabrics, polyester sheer fabrics and water soluble fabric. And you put the two together and you create flower petals, leaf petals, images of butterflies. And it's all literally, it's 3D. And what you do is you get the soldering iron, a craft soldering iron, and you cut it out with a soldering iron. And you're left with a piece of water soluble sewn on, because you use you have to, they're all embroidered with lovely threads. And then once you cut them all out, either with little sharp scissors or a soldering iron, you drop them in water and then you scoop them up. You leave some of the water soluble there because water soluble is a glue. So you leave some of the glue in it, and then you scrunch them up, and then you pin them on a little polystyrene board or a cork board to the shapes that you want them. And then you get lovely, in fact, I've got some individuals. Move the Bayeux out the way. Like little, that's it.
Now I can see it.
Yeah, tiny little flowers. And that is all different layers. And I've used different coloured, my theme is say green, and I've used all different green threads and the shears. And then I create the end result and I bead it. It's got beads in it, things
Now,
like
see,
that.
you should do a YouTube on that.
Yeah, I should do. I should
You
do. I
should,
will do.
if you have time. It sounds like you're
Yeah,
retired. It
yeah.
sounds like I'm coming here to wake you up and say, no, don't retire, do more. This
Yeah,
is
well,
lovely.
I was 70 last week, and I thought it's about time I slowed down. So
Oh,
I thought
okay.
must that's but my son, he's the one that got me into doing the YouTube. And he said, "Come on, Mum, let's get you going." And so, the only thing I could think of that I could do with a camera, and he was standing there with the phone videoing me, and he gets so self-conscious. And I thought, right, okay, then let's do the fabric paper. And the fabric paper one was my very first one. And he lives in Spain, and he's always on the phone saying, "Have you done it? You haven't done any more, So I
So
will
see,
do
he
some.
and I are both telling you, you have to do this, what you just showed me, the 3D flowers and all
Yeah.
that. You have
Okay.
to do it. You have to do another YouTube.
Right. I just didn't think anybody would be interested. So
Hey, I
I
live
mean,
in
I just do it
Iowa.
to amuse myself.
I
So
live in Iowa in the US, and I'm interested in everything that you're talking about, that you're doing. And so, I've even mentioned to some friends, there are a lot of people who make fabric paper, but the size and the texture of yours that I can see is really is different. You know, it's very
Yeah,
complete. And then how did you
yeah.
bind those books? It looks like you had some kind of tree limb on the side or something.
Right. Well, the Bayeux tapestry one is let me show you, is now what I've done is I've done little I don't know, they're about
Flaps.
2 inches by 4 inches, little tabs, and I've machined a little motif on them, edged them all, and then can you see? So they're
Yes.
all edged. They're all individually done like that. And then
But
I went to
what's
the
catching,
DIY.
what's going through them?
Well, I went to the DIY store and got some dowling rods, and I painted them. I painted them gold with a bit of sort of like watercolor paint, and then put fabric beads and painted them gold and slid them on. And so each one has got the tabs on it with the rod going through it. And then I've made a cord, a machine cord, which is um,
I see
these
it.
these. Now I've
Yeah.
done them on the machine. That what they are, they're yarns and different lovely ribbons and things like that. And I twist them, and they go under the machine, zigzag, and you get a lovely cord with them. And so what I've done with those, so I've got the whole pile of the books there, of the pages there rather. And what I've done is I've got long cords, and I've tied them and tied them and tied them and gone through underneath. So each one has got a cord, and they're all tied together. I mean, it's very what, Keith Robertson. It's nothing technical about it. It's just the only way I could think of putting it together so that it looked like a pile. Whereas, say, this one, this one here, I've literally sewn it because I've got ribbon around all the edges. I've been able to sew them and use a bookmaking binding method. So when it opens quite easily. So it's just a different. I make up things as I go along.
Well,
So
good for you. Good for you. And I was going to ask you, when the YouTube video that I watched, there were dolls or some kind of, what are those?
yeah, the dolls.
Yeah,
They are one of your artists. She makes dolls. Is it Patty Cooley? I
I don't
forget
know.
her name. Yeah, it's here's one. And I got really into sort of like making the dolls, and they're all jointed with buttons and buttons on her legs, so her knees bend, and her face is sculptured. You pinch the nose, you sew it all. But that was done out of a book, and it was an American artist. And there's an English one called Jan Horrocks, and she makes them as well. And I just copied them, and I actually ran classes, and lots of my students made some absolutely fabulous dolls. And I've even got a mermaid, Ariel. So she's got a fishtail,
Oh,
and
yeah.
she's all embroidered. So I embroidered her arms, and she's got embroidered belly button and all round her. And her hair is wool, crewel wool that you use for crewel embroidery. And
Uh-huh.
I get straws, plastic straws, when there used to be plastic straws, and I would dilute PVA glue and water, and then soak the wool in it, and then wrap it round the straw, and then my radiator tops all had these bits of straw on the top of them. So when the radiators were on and warming the house up, they were drying and it all came out in lovely little ringlets. So that's the hair. So feels a bit stiff because of the glue, but it did the trick.
You know, you inspired me not to make fabric. I want to try that. But I also wanted to make fabric paper. I want to do that, but what inspired me was to make fabric. I have lots of saris. They're very thin, you
Yeah,
know, applying the same principle, starting with a piece of fabric and
yeah,
then I made a combination of methyl cellulose and PVA glue, and I took
right,
some old pillowcases and cut
right.
them four
Yeah,
in fours, basically. Cut them in half and cut them around and open them up. Then I put the PVA and methyl cellulose on there, and then I put strips of fabric down. And I wasn't
right.
very successful the first time, but I didn't want to cut into any of the saris that I have until I saw what it did.
Yeah,
And then I tried double mounting. I got mounting tape somehow. I didn't know what I was doing, but I took that off. And then the combination of fabric wasn't great. Some was
no,
upholstery fabric and some was a silk scarf. You know, there was a
yeah.
lot of
I
difference
mean,
in,
yeah, what's the end result do you want to do with that fabric?
well, same thing, like the same
Use it
thing
as a
that,
background.
yes.
Right, right, yeah,
They would be the size of half a pillowcase, you know,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
wanted to use them as fabric. And so that's what I've been playing around with, along with my books that I do that I've started doing, all inspired by watching people on YouTube. When we had the lockdown, I I was working from home and
yeah,
nobody could go, you know, anywhere and to eat or anything like that. So I would watch YouTube and I started doing my own interpretation of altered books
that's
and
it. Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it came out of that. It came out of
yeah,
being in COVID lockdown. But anyway,
yeah.
I was really impressed. I'm going to see the Bear Tapestry, and I'm very impressed with your fabric paper. And I love the dolls, and I would love to see you do a YouTube of the flowers, the
The flowers. Okay.
three
Well,
dimensional flowers.
yeah. Well, actually, perhaps that's the encouragement I need because my son telling me to do it is one thing, and as I say, I didn't think people would be interested. So,
Well,
it's
what happens to me is there are things that I'm interested in, and um, I just write to people and say, hey, I track them down and say, would you do an interview with me about what you do? So, in a way, we're not doing crafts together.
no, yeah,
We're talking about the person and what they do
yeah,
because I have a communication. I almost finished my communications degree in journalism and mass communication. So I like this having a conversation with people
right,
about what they do. And I would like to see this 3D water soluble
okay,
thing that you make. I mean, if you have time and if you would, you know, I I think there are people watching. I'm watching, you know.
right, okay,
I mean, I live somewhere on another continent, you know,
yeah,
and it's very different than going to your textile class. Even bringing in something like that
yeah,
um,
yeah,
is really interesting.
yeah,
I don't think anybody should retire. It'll make you,
Well,
it'll make
I'll never stop sewing. That's for sure. So, but I'll have to
so,
try and work out how to do it in stages so that people understand what I'm doing, because it's quite it has so many different stages to it. So,
well, I would
but
like to see the stages. I will
yep,
hound you again. I have your
okay,
email and I will keep in touch and I will hound you and hound you.
okay.
So I'd even like to see you do one on your dolls if the
Trouble is
process
they're not. Yeah, but they're not my dolls, are they? I've copied them from a book. So,
yeah, okay,
am
but
I
you
allowed
can
to do
say,
that?
but
You're not
that's an
really allowed to do
interesting
that.
process that you actually went to look for, or I, you don't have to do the dolls if that's something, but the 3D is definitely,
The
I
3D is
mean,
mine. Yeah.
yeah, that's a really interesting. And the free embroidery is very interesting. And
Oh, yeah, it's
you
lovely to
know,
do.
and I don't think the bear tapestry is as on your YouTube page where I found the fabric paper. I think there should be a link to the bear tapestry. There wasn't one,
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
just
Oh,
so
right.
people can
No,
see.
I don't think no.
They're
Perhaps I
not,
should.
I'm just saying
I'll get my son on it.
that's what you should do. So,
Yeah.
anyway, I won't keep you, but I love talking to you, and I hope we can do
Yeah,
it
it's been
again.
lovely.
And I will be watching, and send me a note saying I've done the
I will contact
step.
you. I've done it.
I've done it.
Will
Let
do.
me
Will
know.
do.
It was lovely
Lovely
talking.
talking to you.
Okay.
Yeah, lovely.
And when I'm
Okay
in the
then. Bye
UK,
bye,
I'll give
Anna.
you a call. Bye.
Yeah,
When I'm in
okay.
the UK visiting my aunt, I'll give you a call.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, do that. Do
Okay.
that.
And bug you some
Okay
more.
then.
And
Bug me some
bother
more.
you some more. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay then. You're very welcome. Bye bye. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye.